there's a real tension in the developer community right now. On Hacker News recently, a post titled, "I'm going back to writing code by hand," hit 800 plus upvotes. Right next to it was a post titled, "An AI coding agent needs to reduce your maintenance cost, not just write code faster." And then another comment which received 1,600 upvotes was, local AI needs to be the norm. So you wrote a book called Beyond Vibe Coding. What do you say to developers who feel like AI is actually creating more debt than value, or that they're losing their craft?
Yeah, this is a really great question. I tend to see a lot of productivity gains from using agentic engineering, but it also comes with a number of things that we have to keep in mind if we're to continue the craft of building high quality software. One of those first things is remembering that just having higher velocity output is not enough, right? If you're using an agent to build you software, to build you features, you as a human, as a senior engineer, need to be able to verify that that output is correct. People might have very strong opinions about what that means, right? Maybe that means having a very extensive set of tests. Maybe it means having visual regression testing. Maybe it means just having a very clear idea of what good means, so that when you're using agents to build more code, to build out more features, they can at least check that they are not going far off the rails. I also think it's very important to be, very intentional about how we think about code review. Very often, again, this is a polarizing topic. There are opinions we'll hear very often that are painted in broad strokes. Like, for example, we will sometimes hear folks say, well, I don't need to review the code anymore, right? If something goes wrong, I'm just going to have my agent fix it. And very often, that's a position, but that position often comes from folks who are one-person founders or small-person teams. They're creating something evergreen. Maybe it doesn't have a lot of users to start off with. And so their approach to verification, their approach to how they work with agents can differ quite a lot from a team that is maintaining either a legacy application or something very large that already has a lot of users, and where being a little bit more Wild West with how you use agents is not going to fly, because you need, you're expected to provide a stable, reliable experience. And so I think it's important just to keep in mind that there's a little bit of a spectrum here of options that people can use. There are also a few things that I've recently been talking about that I think can maybe resonate with folks. The first is cognitive debt. As we increasingly use agents for coding and for other tasks, we can see an erosion of our memory and our skills around how we tackle problems, because we're increasingly just deferring to the agents to do the thing. And our current tools are very optimized for just accomplishing a goal. So let's you give it a spec, let's get that spec built for you. Let's help you get to the end product. They're not really optimized for learning, for understanding, for having a good idea of how that house of cards, hopefully it's not a house of cards, but how that house of cards is constructed. And if you follow up from comprehension debt, you end up, comprehension debt or cognitive debt, you end up with cognitive surrender. And cognitive surrender is where you're no longer critical thinking. You're just deferring entirely to your agents, and whatever output they give is the output that you ship. And that's a big challenge, because if there comes a time when your agent is not able to help you with a fix, or production goes down and your agent is not exactly sure why it is, you don't want to be in a situation where you don't really understand how all those Lego bricks making up your code base connect, how they work, why certain decisions were made. And so I think it's important for us as engineers to understand agents, coding agents, agentic engineering, really powerful. I genuinely believe they offer a great deal of value. I have personally never felt more productive, and also never more tired. I feel like a lot of us are just running lots of agents and have guilt if we're not running agents in the background. And so I think people just need to be very mindful about taking this additional power that we have and making sure that we're not just delegating entirely to the agent, And so we're keeping that human in the loop. Because even at best, if you're building something meaningful today, I would say agents can get you 70% of the way there, maybe 80% of the way there now. But that 20%, that 30% that's left is where your human judgment still has to come in, where your understanding of the fundamentals, your understanding of what good quality means comes in. And so I hope that folks take something from that that's of value.